Do you remember? That dim light in a suffocating room, where a man pressed a gun to his own mouth and said with bitter irony, "I am Jack smirking revenge"? Have you ever wondered? Why Fight Club, a film that sparked fierce controversy when it debuted in 1999, has risen to become a cultural icon for an entire lost generation? In the late 1990 seconds, America was drowning in waves of mindless consumerism. It was an era of IKEA apartments, corporate cubicles, and spiritual emptiness masked by credit cards and catalog furniture. Into this void came director David Fincher's adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's novel, a film that shocked audiences with its violent rebellion against the artificiality of modern society. The film's initial box office performance was modest. Critics were divided. Some called it irresponsible. Others called it brilliant. But over time, something remarkable happened. Fight Club grew. It spread like wildfire through college dorms, late-night cable reruns, and DVD collections. It became the ultimate cult classic, a film that shaped fashion, philosophy, and an entire generation's distrust of the system. At the heart of this cinematic earthquake stood an extraordinary ensemble cast. Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden, the embodiment of wild, untamed masculinity and anarchic freedom. Edward Norton as the narrator, the face of disillusionment, the voice of our inner emptiness. Helena Bonham Carter as Marla Singer, an icon of loneliness wrapped in cigarette smoke and dark eyeliner. And supporting them, Jared Leto as the tragically beautiful angel face. Meet Loaf as the heartbreaking Bob Paulson. Zach Grenier as the corporate drone Richard Chesler. Holt McCallany as the mechanic with his cold, sealess eyes. And behind it all, David Fincher, the visionary architect of this chaotic world. Back then, they were symbols of a generation teetering between delusion and awakening, between conformity and chaos. But now, more than 25 years later, where are they on their real-life journeys? What happened to the faces that once embodied our frustration, our rage, our desperate need for something real? Let's begin with the man without a name, the protagonist, the narrator, and quite possibly the reflection of ourselves. Picture him, that gaunt face, those shadowed eyes glowing in the fluorescent light of corporate America. A man so numb he attended support groups for diseases he didn't have. Just to feel something, anything. Edward Norton was already an established actor when he took on this role. He had earned an Oscar nomination just 2 years earlier for American History X, proving he could disappear into dark, complex characters. But the narrator was different. This wasn't just a performance. It was an exorcism of millennial despair. Norton brought an intellectual intensity to the role. His voiceover narration became the film's cynical conscience, dripping with self-loathing and sardonic wit. He made us believe in a man so broken that he literally split himself in two. After Fight Club, Norton continued to choose challenging, unconventional roles. He starred in films like 25th Hour, The Illusionist, and Birdman, but he also did something unexpected. He stepped behind the camera, directing Keeping the Faith in 2000. He became an environmental activist, serving on the board of multiple conservation organizations. He proved that the thinking man's actor could also be the thinking man's citizen. Today, Norton remains selective about his projects, appearing in critically acclaimed films like The French Dispatch and Glass Onion. He's built a career on intelligence and integrity, avoiding the Hollywood machine that Tyler Durden would have despised. He got married in 2012 to producer Shauna Robertson, and they maintain a notably private life, perhaps the ultimate rebellion in an age of social media oversharing. The narrator found his peace. Edward Norton found his purpose, but the darkness of the narrator only truly ignited when he met his other half, the anarchist philosopher with perfect abs and a recipe for homemade explosives, Tyler Durden. Tyler emerges from cigarette smoke, that smirking grin plastered across his face, shirtless, reckless, and absolutely magnetic. He was chaos incarnate, everything we wanted to be, but were too afraid to become. Brad Pitt was already a megastar when he took this role. But Tyler Durden redefined him. This wasn't the pretty boy heartthrob from Legends of the Fall. This was something feral, dangerous, and intoxicating. Pitt underwent intensive physical training, achieving a body that would become one of cinema's most iconic images. More importantly, he embraced the madness with complete commitment. Tyler Durden became a cultural phenomenon. Men wanted to be him. The red leather jacket, the tinted sunglasses, the philosophy of destruction. It all entered the zeitgeist. Pitt created a character so compelling that people missed the point. Tyler wasn't the hero. He was the cautionary tale. In the years following Fight Club, Pitt's career soared to stratospheric heights. He founded Plan B Entertainment, producing Oscar-winning films like 12 Years a Slave and Moonlight. He starred in Ocean's 11, Troy, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. He finally won his acting Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2020, cementing his legacy as one of cinema's greatest leading men. But his personal life became equally scrutinized. His marriage to Jennifer Aniston ended in 2005, followed by a highly publicized relationship and marriage to Angelina Jolie. Together, they became Brangelina, Hollywood royalty. They raised 6 children and used their platform for humanitarian work, but that fairy tale ended too. With a contentious divorce beginning in 2016, that's still making headlines. At 61, Pitt remains one of the world's biggest movie stars. He's aged gracefully, trading Tyler's anarchist abs for distinguished wisdom. He's producing, acting, and still taking risks. Tyler and the narrator were 2 halves of one tortured soul. But between them stood a woman who made that world even more chaotic, Marla Singer. Marla steps out of a cancer support group, cigarette smoke swirling around her pale, detached face. She wore tattered thrift store clothes and an expression of beautiful nihilism. She was disaster wrapped in tragedy, and we couldn't look away. Helena Bonham Carter brought something desperately human to Marla Singer. This wasn't a typical love interest or a manic pixie dream girl. Marla was damaged, selfish, vulnerable, and completely real. She was the reminder that while men were busy punching each other in basements, women were fighting their own lonely battles with existence. Bonham Carter was already respected as a British actress, having earned Oscar nominations for The Wings of the Dove. But Marla showed she could do gritty American dysfunction as brilliantly as period drama elegance. After Fight Club, her career exploded in unexpected directions. She became Tim Burton's muse and partner, starring in films like Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and Corpse Bride. She joined the Harry Potter franchise as the gloriously unhinged Bellatrix Lestrange, delivering one of the series' most memorable villainous performances. She earned more Oscar nominations for The King's Speech and continued to choose eccentric cable fascinating roles. Her personal life mirrored her unconventional spirit. Her relationship with director Tim Burton lasted 13 years and produced 2 children. Though they maintained separate houses connected by a hallway, after their split in 2014, she continued thriving professionally, appearing in The Crown as Princess Margaret and maintaining her reputation as one of Britain's most distinctive actresses. At 58, Bonham Carter remains defiantly herself, quirky, talented, and utterly unique. She never conformed to Hollywood beauty standards, and she never apologized for her strangeness. Marla would approve. Beside Marla, there was another face that left a powerful impression despite brief screen time, a face so beautiful it became a target. Angel Face. That perfect face, beaten into unrecognizable pulp in the Fight Club basement. It was one of the film's most disturbing scenes, beauty deliberately destroyed by masculine rage. Angel Face represented youth, innocence, and the homoerotic tension lurking beneath the film's masculine violence. Jared Leto was young, gorgeous, and just beginning his career when he took this small but unforgettable role. He barely had any lines, but his presence haunted the film. The beating he received from the narrator was symbolic. It was about destroying the parts of ourselves we find too beautiful, too vulnerable, too honest. What happened to Angel Face after his beating remains ambiguous in the film. What happened to Jared Leto was extraordinary. Leto became the frontman for 30 Seconds to Mars, achieving massive success as a rock musician, but he never abandoned acting. He disappeared into roles with frightening intensity, losing extreme weight for Requiem for a Dream, gaining weight for Chapter 27, then transforming entirely to play a transgender woman in Dallas Buyers Club, earning him an Oscar in 2014. His portrayal of the Joker in Suicide Squad was controversial, as was his behind-the-scenes method acting behavior. He continued taking bold risks with House of Gucci, where his prosthetic-heavy transformation as Paolo Gucci drew mixed reactions. Some praised his commitment, others felt he went too far. Leto, now in his early 50s, remains one of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures. He looks supernaturally youthful, maintains an intensely private personal life, and continues to blur the line between music and acting. He's known for his method approach, his cult-like following, and his refusal to age. Angel Face's beauty was destroyed in the basement, but Jared Leto's beauty seems somehow immune to time itself, perhaps his own form of revenge against mortality. If Angel Face symbolized crushed youth, then Bob Paulson represented loss, gentleness, and heartbreaking humanity. Bob embracing the narrator in that support group remains one of cinema's most tender moments. His name was Robert Paulson. The Fight Club members chant after his death, the only character in the film given the dignity of a name in death. Meatloaf brought enormous warmth to Bob, a former bodybuilder whose testicular cancer left him with bitch tits and a desperate need for connection. It was a vulnerable, sad, beautiful performance from a man known primarily as a rock legend. Meatloaf, born Marvin Lee Day, was already a music icon when he appeared in Fight Club. His 1977 album Bat Out of Hell was one of the best-selling albums of all time. Filled with Jim Steinman's operatic rock anthems, songs like Paradise by the Dashboard Light and I'd Do Anything for Love made him a household name. But Meatloaf was also a talented actor. He appeared in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and throughout his career, he took character roles that showcased his range beyond music. Bob Paulson was his most memorable film role, proof that beneath the loud rock persona was an actor capable of genuine pathos. After Fight Club, Meatloaf continued touring, recording albums, and acting in various projects. He struggled with health issues throughout his life, including numerous back injuries and other ailments that affected his performances, but he never stopped working, never stopped connecting with his devoted fans. On January 20, 2022, Meat Loaf passed away at age 74. The cause was not immediately disclosed, though he had long battled health problems. The tributes poured in from around the world, from musicians, actors, and millions of fans whose lives he touched. His name was Robert Paulson. His name was Meat Loaf, and he left behind a legacy of passion, vulnerability, and unforgettable music. Bob's death reminds us of the soulless corporate world the narrator once inhabited, a world ruled by men like his boss, Richard Chesler. Remember that scene? The narrator standing in his boss's office, punching himself repeatedly, screaming, "Stop hitting yourself," as blood sprays across corporate documents. Richard Chesler, bewildered and horrified, represented everything wrong with corporate America, the clueless authority figure who valued reports over human souls. Zach Grenier's performance was brief but perfect. Chesler was every bad boss you've ever had, dismissive, patronizing, completely disconnected from the humanity of his employees. He was the system made flesh. Grenier was already a veteran character actor when he appeared in Fight Club, having worked steadily in film and television throughout the 1,980 seconds and 90 seconds. He specialized in playing lawyers, authority figures, and morally compromised professionals, roles that came naturally to his intense, no-nonsense presence. After Fight Club, Grenier continued his prolific career, appearing in countless TV shows and films, but his biggest role came in 2009, when he joined The Good Wife as political strategist David Lee. For 7 seasons, he delivered brilliantly sharp, morally ambiguous work. Earning Emmy consideration and becoming a fan favorite, he continued appearing in prestigious shows like Deadwood, Bates Motel, and The Good Fight. He worked consistently, reliably, and skillfully, the definition of a working actor's actor. Now, in his early 70s, Grenier remains active in the industry. He never became a household name, and he probably doesn't care. He built a career on solid work, professional respect, and the satisfaction of doing his job well. Ironically, everything Richard Chesler represented in the most soulless way possible, beyond the corporate world, there were nameless men, the warriors of Fight Club, ordinary people transformed into believers, men like the mechanic. That stone-cold face, the shaved head, those fanatical eyes. The mechanic was one of Tyler's earliest disciples, a man who found purpose in violence and belonging in chaos. He embodied the working-class rage that Fight Club tapped into, the fury of men who felt discarded by society. Holt McCallany brought frightening intensity to the role. He looked like he could actually hurt you. He moved through Fight Club's world with total conviction, representing the thousands of men who followed Tyler into darkness because the light had offered them nothing. Before Fight Club, McCallany had been working steadily in tough guy roles, a boxer here, a soldier there, always bringing authenticity to men of violence. He had the face and physique of someone who had actually lived hard, not just pretended. After Fight Club, McCallany continued taking character roles in action films and crime dramas. He appeared in Gangster Squad, Three Kings, and various TV shows, but his career resurgence came in 2017 when David Fincher cast him in Mindhunter on Netflix. As FBI agent Bill Tench, McCallany finally got the leading role his talent deserved. Over 2 seasons, a delivered nuanced, powerful work, proving he was much more than just an intimidating presence. He could convey vulnerability, intelligence, and moral complexity. When Mindhunter was put on indefinite hold, fans mourned not just the show, but the loss of McCallany's compelling performance. Now in his 50s, McCallany continues working steadily. He's become a favorite of Fincher's, and he's earned the respect of the industry. The Mechanic was a small role, but it connected McCallany to a film that would follow him forever, a badge of honor in a career built on tough, honest work. In Fight Club's world, no one had a real name, but the man who created that world, David Fincher, carved his name deep into cinema history. 25 years have passed since Fight Club exploded into theaters like a pipe bomb at a corporate meeting. A quarter century since Tyler Durden asked us to hit him as hard as we could. Since the narrator discovered he was fighting himself all along, look at where they are now. Edward Norton, the thinking actor, building a careful, meaningful career. Brad Pitt, still a global superstar, now adding producer and Oscar winner to his legacy. Helena Bonham Carter, forever eccentric and brilliant, never conforming to anyone's expectations. Jared Leto, seemingly ageless, controversial, committed to extremes. And Meat Loaf, gone now, but his warmth and passion forever remembered. Some continued to shine brilliantly under Hollywood's spotlight, others stepped back, choosing different paths. One became legend, his voice now silent, but all of them forever linked to this film, this strange, violent, prophetic piece of art. Fight Club was misunderstood at first. People thought it glorified violence. They thought it was irresponsible. They missed the satire, the critique, the warning. But as time passed and society became more hollow, more corporate, more digitally disconnected, Fight Club's message became clearer. It wasn't really about fighting. It was about feeling something real in a world of fake everything. It was about masculine identity crisis in an era that didn't know what masculinity meant anymore. It was about consumer culture eating our souls and selling them back to us in catalog furniture. The film asked dangerous questions. Who are you when you strip away your job title, your possessions, your carefully curated identity? What happens when you realize you're not special, that you're not a beautiful or unique snowflake, that you're the same decaying organic matter as everything else? Today, those questions are more relevant than ever. We live in a world of Instagram identities and LinkedIn personalities, of influencer culture and personal branding. We're more connected and more lonely than ever before. We buy things to fill voids, scroll through lives we don't have, compare ourselves to people who don't exist. Maybe that's why Fight Club endures. Maybe that's why each generation discovers it and sees themselves in the narrator's insomnia-riddled eyes, because deep down, in our curated, filtered, optimized lives, we all have our own Tyler Durden, that voice whispering that this isn't enough, that we're capable of more, that something has to break before something can heal. Time has swept away the chaos of the 1,990 seconds. The millennium came and went. New fears replaced old ones. But Fight Club remains, a reminder that the hardest thing in a world full of noise is recognizing yourself. The buildings fell at the end. The credit cards were destroyed. But the people were still standing, holding hands, watching the destruction. Whether glory has faded or continues to burn, they remain an unforgettable part of cinema's memory. His name was Robert Paulson, Her name was Marla Singer. Their names are written in film history, bloody knuckles and all. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. But 25 years later, we're still talking, still watching, still trying to understand what Tyler Durden was really trying to tell us. Maybe that's the point.